recruiters in general are going to go and show the candidates they're showing you to people who have got completely different cultures because they're in your industry. And one of the reasons I've never found a good salesperson yet is because they want everyone to sell the way that they do. Sales for me is like a three-legged stool, and what we do is one leg. So that's why I've got to collaborate. Have somebody who's brilliant to work with you, but a terrible cultural fit for them, or vice versa. What 3 to 5 non-negotiable behaviours means somebody fits in here or they don't? You know, every business on the planet sells something, delivers it, and financially accounts for it. If they can't tell me who their ideal client is, that's a bit of a worry. And when you get them the right person, the impact is awesome. Nobody's going to buy your solution or product without a good quality conversation. It's obvious. People are different, they think different. Not everyone should work together, right? And if there's any SME business owners listening to this out there, check yourself on this, because I bet you've done it.
So welcome, Jimmy, to our latest edition of our MECast series. As you know, we've asked you down here today to talk about you, to talk about the business. I think we're really interested to understand more about the conversation around people, around recruitment, around performance, in what is very definitely a fast-changing world that we live in. So tell us a bit about yourself and your journey, and a bit about Your Wavelength, the business.
Cool. Yeah, that's a very open question there, Lee. So in terms of the business, we will be 10 years old in February. So February 2025 will be 10 years old. Me, I've been a lifelong rugby player, really enjoyed it, did all right as a kid, learnt some good lessons, sort of in and around professional setups and elite performers. Realised I wasn't going to be quite that good at rugby to make it, and thought better get a job. So went into the world of work, and was a bit sort of taken aback how lots of lessons that are available in sport and regularly there just aren't carried through to business, especially SMEs. So that was always in the back of my head. And then basically where the business came around, we saw an opportunity, worked in SMEs, sometimes alongside blue chips, sometimes just with other SMEs all of my life. And been involved in sales and business development since 2007, and was just really frustrated with the process of recruiting people in fast-growing SMEs. And in 2015, February, decided to do something about it. So that's where our company was born to try and sort that out.
So you are actually building your own as part of another business. You were there trying to recruit salespeople.
Yeah, in two sort of SMEs back to back. One was sort of went from nothing to 10 million turnover in a few years, and then one went from nothing to 25 million turnover in sort of 4 or 5, I think it was. So and what was a bit annoying when you get to scale becomes a weekly and daily annoyance, and it's not just the recruiting process; it's the consequences of poor recruitment, managing people, etc. As I'm sure you're all too familiar with as well, and anyone who's been running businesses for a while. Yeah,
so that's interesting. I'm going to pick you up straight away on that. So those two businesses that you worked at, that's huge growth in both of those businesses. So the ability, I'm curious, what sort of businesses were they? Were they
totally different ones? So the first one was selling food to supermarkets.
Yes.
So it was. Pretty straightforward, right? Spotting a gap in a food product, various different areas of a supermarket, and then working with them to develop that. Sometimes working with suppliers. So sometimes it was equipment suppliers to keep the food hot or be able to transport it, getting the price point right, and working through that. So that was selfishly for me, an unbelievable, completely fluke on my behalf, but an unbelievable experience, because I'm there. I'm 25, 26, 27, and sometimes you're sitting there with a bunch of commercial people from Tesco's or Asda or Morrison's and the Bright. Do you know what I mean? So you're just holding on, trying to figure out what everyone's saying in the room, really. But what an education. Do you know what I mean? So that was really, really lucky. And started out at the bottom in that business and worked my way up, and then was doing sort of deals with supermarkets, which was good. I think at the time we were working with, I'll probably get this wrong, but broadly, the time we were working with Tesco's, for example, I think they were turning over 46 billion globally.
Yes.
So,
Not bad, is it?
and we were like a £10 million food business, which is like a little rubber dinghy in a sea of
Yeah.
QE2s going down there.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting. And then the next business was like a B2B business loyalty program. So it was like trying to get SMEs trading with each other.
Right.
Which went really big, really fast. Caught fire, and it was great. But you need more and more salespeople. You need people across the whole business.
Yeah, and I think that's what's triggered me to ask you that question. So you then were presumably working with what I would like to term traditional kind of recruitment models back in the day. So how active were you in that? Did you deal with them directly, or did you?
As little as humanly possible is the honest truth. Was what we all aspired to be, because recruitment was a real pain in the backside. So it was. So what we tried as a company, we used basically in terms of getting performing people into the business that fit the culture regularly, nothing worked. So we tried the high street names that you would know if you typed into Google recruitment. And we were asking around. So we're trading with other SMEs, asking other established business people. Some of them were fantastically successful and be saying like, we're obviously doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Because we're not getting this recruitment line. And they're like, that's the way it is. But then you ask other people and they say, I know the reason you're getting it wrong is because you're dealing with a big name. What you need is a local recruitment. So you go and work with a local and you get the same results. And then you'd say, right, okay, now what you're getting wrong is you need to have an industry specialist recruiter. So you'd go and try one of those and you'd get the same results. And then then we recruited somebody internally who was a recruiter to come in and get them licenses for all this stuff. And again, it wasn't all bad by any stretch, but the hit rate wasn't what you'd be thinking. And when you start to understand performance and people, you don't need to be an expert to understand culture is important, really. And yet what didn't make any sense is recruiters in general are going to go and show the candidates they're showing you to people who have got completely different cultures because they're in your industry.
Yes. And
it's like, but how can... If that's the biggest point of failure, which knowing now it is by a mile,
right?
And I'm really conscious whenever I talk to anyone that like values, culture, attitude sometimes can come across as a bit woo-woo to people.
Yeah,
not all people, but sometimes can. Certainly, some of our manufacturing clients sometimes can be a bit like, oh yeah, what do you mean?
Yeah, it sounds like marketing speak.
Yeah, what specifically in recruitment, what we actually mean, or what I mean by that is, what 3 to 5 non-negotiable behaviours mean somebody fits in here or they don't. That's all it really means, right? So you can use a buzzword. You've got to define it in plain English as to what you mean.
Yeah.
So do you want me to elaborate? Are you all right?
Yeah, no, but I think you should elaborate because I think this is the importance, isn't it? Being specific.
Yeah, well, we can bring it back to your business actually. So let's say, for example, a belief that you have, right? So this is your behaviour. Let's say, for example, you believe get it right first time. Don't ship any work unless it's absolutely right. If you work in a precision engineering business, that is a fantastic attribute to have most of the time.
Yes.
Because if you don't get it right, you've probably written off a load of product.
Yes.
And also your colleagues have got to come and bail you out and fix it. You do that enough times, it's really going to pee off your team, right?
Yeah,
and you don't fit in that culture.
Yeah.
However, knowing you as I do, if somebody came to join your team and they wouldn't let you have any creative ideas unless they were brilliant, it wouldn't work. Because a lot of the time in the creative industry, it's like almost like show me your bad work, isn't it?
Yes.
It's like, right, we're going to solve this problem. Let's think of 50 ways we can do it. 49 might be rubbish, but one is the gold.
Yeah.
So that value is not positive or negative globally, but circumstantially, like specifically, it's a massive deal breaker.
Yeah.
So like you could have somebody who's brilliant to work with you, but a terrible cultural fit for them, or vice versa.
Yeah, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally makes sense. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how we got on this tangent, but it's great. Isn't it?
So you're so let's talk about Your Wavelength. So you started the business now 10 years old, by the way. Congratulations next year. That's going to be fantastic.
Cheers, mate.
For any business. So what you wanted it to be then to what it is now. Talk to us about what the genesis of that was. And you're kind of, listen, there's a gap in the market. We feel like there's an opportunity here. I don't suppose you quite knew the journey that was
Definitely
in front
not,
of
no,
you, but
no.
I love that youthful exuberance and all the rest of it.
Yeah. It's been a complete, like probably most businesses, I'd say tongue in cheek, like it's almost like the Thomas Edison approach of how not to run a business. There's 10,000 ways not to do it, and let's hopefully stumble on the right one. We have changed, seemingly, it feels like everything. It obviously won't be, but in terms of like who do we work with? We work with big global blue chips to start with. The methodology that we used, we've learned and built on so much stuff, And personally, I think the mistake I made, or one of the challenges I made, was trying to make a business that worked today that it was going to be massive. I've completely ignored that and gone back to just try and deliver a brilliant service as small as you can. Then you'll grow off the back of that.
Yeah.
And so, like, I have very little interest in working with big blue chips.
Yeah.
Mainly because there are, and this is not all of them, I'm sure there's brilliant ones out there, but in general, my experience to date in 10 years is there are too many human beings in a box.
Yes.
And there is less reward for making the right hiring decision for those people than there is consequences of making the wrong one. And so nobody wants to make a decision.
Yeah.
And so the whole process takes ages. Whereas you contrast that with our client base, they're SMEs. They are typically turning over 1 million to 50 million. There's 3 directors or fewer. They've been established 10 years or longer. They know what they want. And when you get them the right person, the impact is awesome.
Yeah.
Do you know, it makes you feel good.
Yeah.
And that is the complete contrast to working with almost a faceless organization.
Yeah.
Yes, they can get more people hired through you and you could make more money, but the emotional toll, the juice ain't worth the squeeze for me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'd much rather be like working with a company to almost try and be the rocket thrusters that they put on their rocket to get into orbit.
Well, if you think about just the general notion that the way you position your business, your brand, and obviously we know this because we worked with you with that, is it's in many ways parallels how you approach finding the right people for a business, isn't it? There's a purposeful sentiment behind that, which is not just square pegs and whatever hole.
Yeah.
So you've been very defined about the market you're looking to reach. So by definition, I mean, in many ways, I think it runs really nicely as a business that you're actually saying your promise to your clients and the people, your candidates, is the same. Yeah. Is that we will find you the right position that fits for whatever reason that is.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that's probably really obvious, but it's taken me far too long to realise. But when you, like you say, you understand who you want to serve and how you want to serve them. So if we go back to the question you said about like your experience before you started this business, it did just feel like people are throwing CVs at us and it is a numbers game. But then if you understand the game, most recruiters haven't been a client of a recruiter.
Yeah.
So they don't understand the other side. They're very, very good at their game. And that's the game they're in, right? Which is you've got KPIs to hit. Your reward is top biller. It's not top placer. That's, you're about maximizing your candidate pool. So, and this isn't every recruiter, but in general, if you work in a recruitment agency, your job is to build your candidate base up in a vertical. So like whatever market it is, could be anything. And then your job is to then go and find a bunch of companies that work in that market. And what you're in general going to do is you're going to anonymize a CV. You're going to mass mail merge all these companies. Any that reply to you, you're going to ring and speak to and try and get a candidate into interview. Then when you've run out of those, any that have opened it, you're going to pick the phone up, try and speak to, try and get them in. And what you're going to do is try and send this person into all these different organizations based on skills. But when we go back to the conversation about cultural piece, it's the number one reason by a mile why somebody looks good for a skill set and isn't a fit.
Yeah.
And the more you guys know from a marketing point of view, it's obvious. Yeah. People are different. They think different. Yeah. Not everyone should work together, right?
Yeah.
So, but that's in general the way that most people in that market work. So for us, it's like, well, we don't do that. We're really clear. The employer is paying our fee to work with us. We are engaged to find one person, one employer one SME business owner, their team. So everything's written for what they need. But when you think about that, and that's the problem you're trying to solve, you can behave in a different way. So if you're not trying to take these candidates and show them to loads of people, you can be way more focused on the fit for the client.
Yeah.
So we have like 4 levels of filtering at our business. The last level is we physically interview the candidate for that role,
right,
and record it so that any of our clients get the CV, the application answers, so the answers to questions that are specific for that role, and then one of us interviewing the candidate for that role specifically. And broadly, our approach to interviewing is like 50% talking him in the role,
yeah,
and 50% talking him out of it.
That's interesting.
So,
what does that? I'm curious. What does that look like then?
So what that generally, if it's me, I'm quite relaxed, and you change depending on the person you're speaking to in the role. But broadly, that's going to be starting off. We're going to talk about the role, making sure that there's no misunderstandings. This is the location. This is the salary and the package. This is when you need to be in the office.
Yeah.
This is the expectation of how many nights away from home they're going to be. But then we also get into the, for sales, it's really important to get into the activity level. So people think about sales as like a one skill, but it's not. It's a series of skills. And depending on what you need, I'm trying to keep out the weeds here, but depending on what business you're in, who you sell to, what the average order is going to depend on what the activity looks like. So you need to get into some of that, because you could be a brilliant salesperson. So let's say, for example, I'll cheat and I'll use some of the conversations I've had in the last couple of weeks. Let's say, for example, you are a specialist bespoke software business. So you're going to go in and you're going to deliver bespoke software to big businesses over 3 to 4 years, and they're going to be spending £300,000 a year with you. The activity you need as a performing sales professional for them is actually really quite different than if you are looking for somebody to come in and be a top performing salesperson for your IT consultancy.
Yeah.
Both can sell. Both might even end up selling similar numbers in terms of what have you sold last year.
Yeah.
But the way that you sell, one might be targeting 5 clients a week, so 20 a month, and one might be targeting 250.
Yeah.
So the quality of conversations. Hopefully I've not bored you too much on that, but
No.
So then in terms of how talking them out of it looks like, is like, okay, Lee, we've gone through that. That's great. Looks, the reason you're having this conversation with me is because we think you're a good fit. You might not know this, but you've actually been filtered 3 times by our team.
Yeah.
So now we're having this conversation, and we've gone through all that. You're happy with that. I'm happy with these. Let's have a look at the reasons why this isn't going to work for you. So you live X amount of time away from it. Is that going to be all right? Or you mentioned earlier on that you left that role because there was too much traveling, but this role's going to have some traveling. Are you going to be comfortable with that?
Yeah. You said something about your children earlier.
Yeah.
Growing up, for example.
Yeah, a great one. Or from a cultural point of view, you said you didn't like being micromanaged, but this is the other end of the spectrum, right? So you come into this SME and you're not going to be micromanaged. They're looking at you to lead that. But that's on the way. Are you going to be comfortable? Are you going to be comfortable only getting direction once a week in a team meeting?
Yeah, interesting.
Or is that going to frustrate you?
Yeah.
Broadly, if you want to get the right fit, the framework we've sort of developed, which is using research and looking at what we've seen. So it's book smarts with real world and our own experience, and then just playing with it and using our own language. So there's probably nothing revolutionary in here, but this is how we do it. If you want to get a performing member of the team, you need to address 4 key areas. And this is probably the same for sports as it is for anything else, right? So the first one's capability. Yeah. So your skills and your experience, but also your natural attributes. So in the world of sales, if you do not like talking to people that you don't already know, that's going to be a tough one. But there are lots, if not most people in the population who aren't comfortable speaking to people they don't know. Go to a wedding, see what happens, right?
Yeah.
So they're key. Then you've got the ability to perform in the working environment. So just because they've come from your industry doesn't mean they can perform in your environment. And in today's world, that's as much about physical environment, or it is from, are you actually all right working from home?
Yeah.
This is a remote role. Have you ever worked remotely before?
Yeah.
You're going to be by yourself a lot. Yeah, you are talking to people, but it's people you don't know.
Yeah.
Are you going to be all right?
Yeah. Motivation levels.
Yeah. Are you, right, is there a remote role? Then fine, great, but are you still all right to go and travel to the client's premises because you've worked really hard to close this sale? and now they need to see you to shake your hand. Are you all right jumping in a car and doing 3 hours? And
Yeah.
is that something you're comfortable with? Can you stay away from home? Are you all right on the phone? All that sort of stuff, right? So can you perform in that environment? The culture and attitude piece, we call it team fit because everyone calls it something different. So we've just given it an umbrella term, whether it's values, culture, attitude, or whatever. Yeah. And that just, as we said earlier on, what 3 to 5 non-negotiable behaviours defined mean you fit in here or you don't.
Yeah.
And then lastly, by no means leastly, is motivation. So ultimately, that can be boiled down to, so how does succeeding in this role get you where you want to be in the next 2 to 4 years?
Yeah.
Because no matter what the job is, you are going to come in and get an induction and it's going to be great. And then this support's going to drop away and you're off. Now, in sales in particular, you have days, weeks, sometimes months where you don't get anything for reward for the activity that you do. You just strike out. If you don't have a big enough carrot to keep going, you won't.
Yeah.
So there needs to be an understanding of, why are you doing this, Lee?
Yeah.
How does this benefit you? So when you have a day where you're just absolutely eating it, and then you have another day, and you have another day, why are you coming in day 4?
Yeah.
How are you not going to lose the faith?
Yeah.
So it's, but if you concentrate across those, so capability, working environment fit, team fit, and motivation, you won't go far wrong.
So this brings me round to where you've kind of niched over the time into the salesperson. So a lot of this is fundamentally around sales. I know it's not the only part that you do with your recruitment, but why sales? What's the draw there?
I think, well, firstly, it's my skill set, so I know it, and I feel really comfortable in and around that. So, for example, if it was, can you find software engineers? I wouldn't know how to ask a software engineer for the right one and how to assess them. But 2 is it's the lifeblood of every business on the planet sells something, delivers it, and financially accounts for it. So if you don't have your sales, you're really struggling. And there's a lot of SMEs that used to have sales taking their eye off the ball, and they get themselves into problems. So I really enjoy it, and I also think it's a really misunderstood area. There's a lot of snake oil even is the word I'm looking for, isn't it? Snake oil salesmen out there.
Yeah.
Where people overcomplicate it. Ultimately, in most industries, if you're not buying e-commerce, nobody's going to buy your solution or product without a good quality conversation.
Yes.
And the formula for more sales is number of good quality conversations with the right people.
Yes.
The more good quality conversations you have with the right people, your prospective clients, the more sales you will have.
Yeah.
In general. So you can work back from that. There is a real challenge for SMEs in being able to hire salespeople that actually return on investment, that deliver performance.
Yeah.
And the more I've fallen in love with that problem, the better we've got at solving it, and it also works for most industries, right? Most people need salespeople. So it's just a thing that you can get really passionate about, really knowledgeable about. And when you solve it, it makes a huge difference.
It's so interesting this. So my personal background is sales. So like a lot of people, I fell into it over the years. And sales became account management. And somewhere along the line, those lines got very blurred.
Yeah.
And I remember quite some time ago recognizing the difference between the two. And as we have grown, and I think pivotally, COVID's really kind of pressed the reset button on all this. It's just about businesses. I take your point. I think they've forgotten the value. There was a moment actually, sales was almost a not a very good word.
Yeah,
It was
definitely.
a bit like consultancy in many ways. You just got hijacked, and all of a sudden it got bad rap. But to your point, frankly, without it, you have nothing. Really, do you?
Yeah.
I mean, the perennial conversation that used to happen back in my day was the operations would be like, well, I help you do your job. And I'll be like, well, if I didn't do my job, you wouldn't have a job. And then that whole conversation starts. So it's always quite an interesting scenario of that. So is it just front end sales that you work with, or do you do sort of account management, or what?
Yeah, it's basically first, the key prerequisite is, are you going to get return on investment? So what we don't do, because I can count the number of times in 10 years this has worked on one hand, which is, this is what we need. There's a job description. Just go and find us that. It's like, right, if that's what you want, there are literally tens of thousands of recruiters that will fall over themselves to work with you for that. Off you go. What we're going to do is actually understand what you need. So it might well be that you need an account manager, but it might well be that you shouldn't work with us to get one, depending on what it is that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Anything in sales in general, account management is a real general term. Like, is there actually any sales in it? Or do you just want somebody to hold the hands of the key clients you've got? Is there any upselling in there? What does it look like? You know,
interesting.
Because it's a very general term. But as a rule of thumb, we do anything from your first ever sales role for a client right the way up to sales director, MD and general manager type stuff. So the crucial thing, and this is sort of a learning point, an epiphany really that I've had the last few months, is that most SMEs struggle because they don't know two bits of information. And if they don't have these two bits of information, you can't possibly calculate return on investment. And those two bits of information are, what specific sales activity should I expect from a sales professional?
Yeah.
And then that activity is going to generate results. And then in return for getting somebody to do that for my business, what do I need to pay them?
Yeah.
So what typically happens, and if there's any SME business owners listening to this out there, check yourself on this, because I bet you've done it, is, I know we have, right, I need sales. So the first thing I'm going to do is get a salesperson. Brilliant. Right. I'll speak to my two mates who run businesses and find out what they pay their salespeople. Right. So then when I speak to them, I'm like, right, what industry? Are they in your industry? No. Are the salespeople performing? Don't know. So what possible relevance is it to say, well, they're paying their £37,000 or they're paying their £67,000? Or it's like, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's not market rate. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
So let's understand it. And actually, because of what we do, and we do it regularly, we've got a lot of blueprints. Effectively, this is how you can grow your business. This is the activity level you should do, depending on your business. Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense, yeah.
And I've basically worked out, I don't know what the right word is, you could probably help me with this, but whether it's persona or not, there's basically three categories of SME business owner that I can see from a sales point of view. 2 should hire salespeople, 1 definitely shouldn't. So the first one would be highly bespoke, high ticket item. Now that could be the bespoke software solution, but it also could be you're manufacturing something. So you could be a signage company and you're manufacturing these signs for this retailer. So that has a certain type of characteristic that a sales professional would be more a sniper, right? You're going to be getting less proposals out per month, but they're going to be very targeted, but they're going to be high ticket.
Yeah.
The second one could be a company like ours. It could be an IT provider, potentially some of your marketing side of it. You know, it's bespoke to a point, but it's not heavily bespoke. You're using a framework you can use with others, but you want more clients. The spend's much lower than the bespoke guys, and you want more clients, right? But you still make a good profit. Great. That behavior looks quite different to the other ones. And then there's a third group, and the third group are, they don't make a good profit. When they look at their numbers, it's a bit of a mixed bag. You know, like, for example, some IT companies that don't do a lot of cyber and they're not quite sure, they're not selective with their clients, can get into some challenges because if they have a client that has 2 issues or more in a year, they don't make much profit.
Right.
The last thing you want to do is hire a salesperson that you're paying 40, 50 grand a year to get you a load more clients that don't make you a load of money.
Yeah.
And actually what you should do is use affiliate marketing.
Yeah.
Or distributors, or some other channel.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Strategic partnerships.
Yeah.
White labeling potentially.
Yeah.
You could do that, couldn't you? Depending on your.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now I've seen that, I can't unsee it.
Yeah.
When you put that lens back on the clients that you work with that you know you shouldn't have done, it didn't work out, or whatever else. But actually, a really interesting thing comes from doing that information, because when you take that information with the client, you sit and have a conversation, or a prospective client, or anyone, and then you look at the opportunity size. In the last 2 weeks, I've done that, and one client that was in software realised that there was a £285,000 gross profit opportunity in year one, but from that salesperson's activity in year one, because they keep the client 3 years, it ended up being, I think, around about £870,000 gross profit.
Of course, yeah.
So then the question is, well, in your industry, I think you're probably going to need to pay 70k basic, right? I could be wrong with these numbers, but off the top of my head, I think we're looking at £6,400 a month for national insurance. That's what you're going to be paying them, right? The question now is, can you cash flow somebody's wages to deliver that for a view to get an 875k gross profit?
Because that's going to be a long tail, isn't it?
Yeah, a long tail, but you're keeping the clients for a long time as well. So but it's a cash flow exercise.
Yeah.
And the key thing there is, you're not actually measuring the salesperson on the sale they make. You can track their activity. So are they doing that activity in week 2? Because they're a seasoned sales professional coming in at that level. You're not getting somebody out of school.
No.
So you can actually measure if they're doing that work. And likewise, another client, their number ended up looking like it was 1.1 million over a 4-year period of hiring that salesperson. So you can see whether you should or you shouldn't. Then it's cash flow.
Yeah.
And you can make decisions. And if you can't afford cash flow, maybe you could get a high quality person in 2 days a week.
Yeah.
So it's a much better conversation.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I feel like the traditional model that I've been through in over my time, none of these conversations are ever on the table, ever.
Yeah.
Ever. I mean, it's just not that. It is just matchmaking. So, one of the things that for the audience, it's important you understand that we've done some work together in that we've helped you with your positioning of the brand, and you have greatly helped us secure our first salesperson. So this is living proof of this. And I think it's really interesting. You really got us. I think we're really actually very good at understanding businesses. That's what we do for a living, how communications and culture and people, how important all that is in business. And yet you really got us to look at ourselves and really concentrated us on what do we want.
Yeah.
You really did. You really helped us, navigated us along a journey that got us thinking about, well, what does good look like for us? Especially in view of the fact that we hadn't, primarily, most of our business has always been referral. So this was a new role for us. So I won't lie, it was quite daunting. It's a big decision for our business to make. But we were dead excited by it. And you took away all of the stress. You kept it really, really, really simple. And you just focused down on, well, what does this look like? So how many times do you get into a conversation with a client about X, and you actually sit there and think, I think you need to be looking at Y or Z?
80% of the time, probably 80-20. Yeah, I'd have thought so, which is, and it's certainly like anyone listens to this, whatever your expertise is, you've got nuance in what you do, right? You know it better than everyone else or most of the people that don't do it. So it's just the same as that, right? So again, we think we know what sales is, but then it's like, well, right, we've got a load of questions that are going to give us content. Are you providing leads for these people? Yes or no? Yes, some. No. Okay, the leads that you are providing, do they get more commission when they generate their own lead or less commission? I hadn't thought about that. You just go through a whole series of these things. Like, do you really need them based in the office? And then if we're doing our job properly, what you almost need to do is create dilemmas for the person to think it through, like thought exercises. So like if I can get you someone who's absolutely brilliant with a little black book contact book, but they live 3 hours away from your office, you don't want to speak to them then? Oh, no, I do want to speak to them. Well, you said they have to work in, well, no, maybe they don't have to work in the office. So you just stress test it. Do you know what I mean? Realistically, there are only so many variables you can change. So you've got to play with what salary can you afford? What total package can you pay? Where do you want them to work? What hours do you want them to work? As we say, like location. That's about as much as you can do. So then my job really is to create the most likely chance of them succeeding and give them, you can't always do this, but what I love doing is getting 3 candidates through that have gone through, that I've interviewed, that we've videoed, and they all would be a cultural fit, or I believe they would. And they're all proven. They can perform in the role, but they're different personalities, even though they fit within the culture. Because it's almost like, right, which one's your favourite that you want to work with?
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't say that. A lot of people are like, oh no, you've got to have done a psychometric and but the reality, and each to their own, but the reality is you like some people more than others. And that's sort of your wavelength, pardon the pun, but that is like why it's called your wavelength, is because it matters.
Yeah. Well, listen, you're talking to someone who really embraces this. As you know, we do a lot of work with brand on the inside. So without getting too technical on this, it's very simple. You know, businesses have a promise and a proposition that they place, and they want to connect with customers and clients who are going to buy their product or service from them. And we're always really, really passionate about the notion that, number one, do you actually know what that is? And do you know who your audiences are? But let's just assume that you do. Do your people internally know that? Do they understand that? Are they connected with that? And how much are you giving them? And interestingly enough, earlier on, another MECast, we had a really interesting conversation with a gentleman called Robin Lodge, who has been doing leadership training and management training for 20, 25, 30 years. And we worked a lot together. And he was telling me about, never more has there been a need to get that right internally. You know, COVID was as desperate as it was a real shot in the arm that perhaps business needed in many ways. So we're seeing a big shift towards businesses really recognizing the value of their people. So this is really what I'm getting to, is which seems to play really well into what you do, and I guess why we work well together.
Yeah, and having gone through that process with you guys, you know, as a client of yours, you know, that's why we've got people performance outcome on the bottom of our logo, because that came out of that like what's your promise? And just the frustration of, if the person doesn't deliver results that you wanted, it hasn't worked. Like, that's not recruitment, is it? Like, anyone can get a body in.
Yeah. They've
got to actually come in, fit in, and be able to perform. That's what people want.
Yeah, I actually remember, Jimmy, us even at one point saying, we keep trying to avoid the word recruitment.
Yeah.
We want to sort of dance around it because again, it's one of those words that has been kind of hijacked along the way. Is there another word for it?
No, I don't think so. You could say headhunting, couldn't you? You could say executive search, but the challenge, it's like, and do you know what? Every industry has this. You come to realise whenever I speak to somebody, like, oh, everyone has this perception of our industry, but it's this. The challenge is, when you say recruitment, people think they know the process you're talking about. And it's my job, to a certain degree, to sort of re-educate them if they're open to it, and just say, look, that's not how we work. We work like this. But if it's not for you, that's fine. We're very clear on who we want to work with, and it's brilliant for the people that want it. And the people that don't, it's not. So, and I'm perfectly comfortable with that, as I know you are for most of your clients that have got a brand and an idea of who they want to work with. So,
I want to ask you a question. So this is kind of related to where the line of marketing and sales come together, because I'm a firm believer that they are intrinsically connected. Really, without one, you can't have the other, and vice versa. Would be my take on this. You'd expect me to say this. So, an example of this is this. So we've gone through this process and we've selected our candidate, who we're very confident is going to do an amazing job for us. And one of the things that this gentleman asked us, and we were quick to tell him, was, what's in my toolbox? You know, so I've got all of my knowledge and I've got all of this passion, all of this drive, and I feel like we've got a good culture fit. But I know that my job's going to be made way easier if I really understand what I've got by way of communications and things that I can use at my disposal that will make my job easier to sell.
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts on that, you know, in general?
Do you know what? Being really honest, in the world of SME and across, it's a mixed bag. It really is.
Yeah, right.
You know? And it is clearly a lot simpler for the salesperson if there is clarity on who's buying what we sell it for, what's problems it's solving. There is effectively, we've got a series of red flags. So there are people we will help out. If there's too many red flags, we don't work with somebody.
Right.
So like my first question would be, tell me who your ideal client is.
Yeah.
If they can't tell me who their ideal client is,
Yeah.
that's a bit of a worry.
Yeah.
It's not like you're a bad person, but it's just, look, before you engage, because what I would like to do for you is go and hire you a sales professional who is going to go and bring on these ideal clients for you. Because you don't want the also-ran clients. You want the best clients,
Yeah,
right? They're going to deliver the most
absolutely.
profit, the best work, and drive your brand forward and your business forward, whether that's through an exit or just to grow, right?
Yeah.
If you can't tell me that, I can't really do my job.
Yeah.
So I'd love to say that everyone's got it nailed down. They haven't at all. And sometimes they're really not sure, but they're then looking for a professional to come in who's also got a bit of experience around that.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit more seasoned, been around the block a bit, and can help steer that.
Yeah.
And I also really like working with clients who are like, look, we just don't know. We want some, as part of the person coming in, we want them to make the sales, but we also want them to educate on, why are people buying this from us?
Yeah.
Is it for the reason we think it is?
Yeah,
or not?
see, I feel like this is genuinely one of your unsung sweet spots. I think it's the ability to be able to. It's a bit like the work we do. You know, you to a point. In the most part, people will come to our business for something, and if we do a good enough job, we'll one of the first things we'll do is signpost them to something else, but only for the greater good. You know, it's not. You know, we don't get any more money for doing any of these things. We're just seeing a bigger picture, and it's interesting what you actually find, because you've worked in business, is that sometimes people don't know. They don't know.
Yeah.
Through conversation, I can only imagine it would happen with you, Jimmy. You're talking to people, and all of a sudden you've got the opportunity to say, listen, I know you came to us for this particular role, but I'm seeing something else here that I think is going to be better for you. And that, again, isn't a recruitment play, is it?
Oh, yeah. So like what happens typically with that is a conversation I'll have is, right, I've got 4 salespeople and none of them are performing, so we need to go in and get a performer. And I'm like, well, should you not try and get the 4 performing first? Like, I appreciate you want to work with me, but A, you've got a payroll with 4 people on it that sound like they're not returning investment. B, if you don't sort that out, culturally, we're going to put somebody in who's now looking at what's acceptable in your organisation is not high performance or even strong performance. It's also run at best. So actually, before you engage me, I'd recommend you sort that out. Now, whether that is, my personal recommendation would be, go and get a sales trainer in who's bloody good, right? There's one I do a bit with called Austin Hempstead, who's very active on LinkedIn. I'm very happy to endorse him, but there's lots of other good ones out there.
Yeah.
I've talked to a fair few of them. But go and get them to work with your team, right? It might cost you $2,000, it might cost you $3,000, but you're paying how much for these 4, 5, 6 salespeople every month? The sales trainer, a good sales trainer worth their salt, will let you know which ones can turn around and let you know which one.
Yeah, right.
Because you're saying to them, you know, if it's my business and you're coming in as a sales trainer, I'm saying, Lee, right, I'm giving you £2,000. I expect to see some performance. And you might say, listen, I can get those 2 there. Those 2 other people aren't salespeople. They ain't going to put the work in.
Yeah.
In which case, then you're in the performance management side of it.
Yeah.
But they're difficult conversations to have, but that's the right thing to do for the business.
Yeah.
And then you can start to go, right, well, now we know what we work, how it works for us and what doesn't work and what does. Looking to get a salesperson in, I've actually got more information to go and do that. Now, we don't do sales training. I'm a very big collaborator, so I'm very happy to work with people who do.
Yeah.
But stick to your knitting. Do you know what I mean? I want to be an inch wide and a mile deep in terms of what we solve.
I like that. Yeah.
I still think someone else, don't know. So someone clever said that.
Again, it's interesting referencing the colleague I was speaking to about, Robin, because he does training and leadership training and development. One of the big plays for him is that what the business does, and typically it is coming right from the top, isn't clear.
Yeah.
all the way down through the layers. So I guess you've got that other side to sit at here, because in the most part, those are the people who become your client.
Yeah.
They're the decision makers. So I guess you've got to navigate yourself around that sometimes. And I'm sure you look into the whites of some of your clients' eyes and think, well, I don't know that you know. So I don't know if I'm able to influence that, or I've got to navigate this, and I might find the best person for your business, but you might be the problem if there is a scenario there.
Yeah, so that's where, and again, every business that's been around a while has faced that, right?
Yeah.
The client brief,
Yeah.
knowing that you should do, and the best way to coach that is experiencing it. Every time you didn't speak up and you went along with it, it backfires. It's a nightmare for them and you and everyone else involved. And you just learn, just have the conversation. So that's where I, bring in the Yorkshire tact.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't understand why that would work. Why would I buy that from you?
Yeah.
What problem's that solving? I'm really aware that sales for me is like a three-legged stool. And what we do is one leg. So that's why I've got to collaborate. So if you want to get good sales performance in your organization, yes, you've got to have the talent. So if you've got somebody who's not a salesperson, no matter what you do with them, it's not going to work, right? If they're not naturally going to be good to it, that is what it is. So you get the right person. Then you've got to train them, not just on how to sell, but how to sell them to your target client with your services. What does that look like?
Yeah.
Give them the case studies of these are the clients that buy and get real good success out of it. So target theirs.
Yeah.
This is the channels that we've used successfully before. Here's the people who would refer you to other. Oh, brilliant. So that's what I mean by that. And then the third thing is leadership, which I think is what you're touching on here, which is the world changes. So as a ludicrous example, but it'll get the point across. You're Garmin, and then Apple give away your product for free on a phone. It's no good telling your sales reps why you're down on last year's sales numbers. You had more meetings. The world's changed, so what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Well, they've gone into a new market. And so that's what you need. If you get those three things as an organisation, you can have high-performing sales teams, but I only affect one of them.
Yes.
So that's why it's so important for me to have collaboration or to be comfortable having a conversation. I haven't got the solution, unfortunately, but no. I don't get that proposition.
Yeah. But I suppose if you're having that conversation, I always feel like if people are worth their salt, they can't unhear it, can they?
Yeah.
So once it's out, isn't it? And then you just hope that people just, whether it's a moral compass or just good old fashioned do the numbers, that they just don't work it out themselves.
Yeah. But again, that comes back to the luxury of, there's lots of challenges running your own business, isn't there? But the luxury is you don't have to work with anyone you don't want to. So again, experience teaches you, if somebody doesn't listen to your advice, don't work with them.
Yeah.
You don't want me. You want to be able to do everything that you've always done, but want a different result. And I can't do that for you, mate. So cheerio.
Yeah. Best of luck to you.
Yeah. I'll go and work with somebody who's saying, look, I don't know this. Can you tell me? Yeah, it's that, and that. Brilliant. Okay, let's do that.
So talk about your process. So how does it work? Do you, I mean, I'm saying, I know how it works because I've been through the process, but for the audience, what does a traditional kind of methodology look like when you engage with Your Wavelength?
Well, for us, it just starts with, everything starts with conversation. So
like a discovery call type thing.
Yeah. And just a relaxed conversation. Tell me about your business. Where are you trying to go?
Yeah.
Because, that's a big factor. Are you looking to try and sell in 3 years? Or are you just looking to double the size of the business within 3 years? What I said that's a punchy goal. But what is it you're looking to achieve? Right. What's happened to date? Tell me about your sales team now. Is there anything that you'd change? That sort of stuff. Our clients are quite varied. So it depends. But it all starts with a conversation. And then ultimately where we're trying to get to is road test it. Right, so you say you want this. What was in this scenario? Would you still want that? What about this? What about that? Like one of the big things we get is they must have industry experience. And you go, all right, okay. How many of your competitors would you say good? None of them. Right, so we've got to hire someone from them. What about the culture? No, they're all way off. Right, so they're culturally a problem and they're not as good as you. So you want us to hire them. Where have you been hiring all your people that haven't worked out from? Well, from there. right, do we want to do that again? Or shall we go and get somebody who is, because one of the hacks, if that's the right word, one of the fertile soils that people don't farm a lot is people who already sell to the same client base you are, but from a totally different industry. They already understand their challenges. They might have some contacts, but it's more about getting their situation.
Yeah.
So we touched into my background before, right? If you try and sell to a supermarket buyer or any PLC buyer the same way that you think you're going to sell to an SME business owner, best of luck.
Yeah, good luck.
Totally different priorities,
Yeah.
different circumstances. You either get that or you don't.
Yeah.
And even within our client base, right? So I sell and work with almost exclusively SMEs. I know you sell a load of SMEs yourself.
Yeah.
But actually, some of my clients sell to blue chips.
Yes.
The salespeople are very different.
Yeah.
But you can get somebody from a totally different industry to yours, but that is used to approaching exactly the same type of people on the same sort of activity levels and the same frequencies in probably equally as technical a sale. And they smash it.
Yeah.
But you didn't even realize that resource was open to you.
Yeah.
So that's sort of tangent I took with there.
But but it's so interesting because, again, rule 101 or myth 101 is from traditional recruitment, is they do exactly, have you worked in that industry before? Have you sold that before? And that's what they do, isn't it? I mean, literally that's, the whole CVs sit and, live and die on that, don't they?
Yeah.
And so it's quite interesting to hear it from a different angle.
Using that method, to me, logically, if you step back from it and look at it, only works if you're paying the most money. Yeah, of course you can have the cream from your industry.
Yeah.
Because you've got the biggest pockets.
Yeah.
Well, that's not SMEs. So I had a conversation. The beautiful thing about the age we live in now is you can find the information if you want to look for it. So like if you use whatever AI tool you want, there's loads out there, your chatbot, whatever you're using, and you ask questions and then you ask it to show you resources, and then you'll start to find great reports. You can read through these reports. I found one the other day that had like 20,000, it was a US-based one with 20,000 different salespeople's activity levels in the survey. But I had a conversation with the bespoke software company I mentioned earlier on, and my basic conversation went, this is the activity level of what the top salespeople make in software sales. I said, now why don't you get rid of that? Because they're making £1.5 million a year working for Salesforce and you weren't ever getting them.
Yeah.
But let's look at what somebody who does 40% of their activity, which is still a good salesperson for your level.
Yeah.
Look what they can do.
Yeah.
And it's like, ooh, yeah, that's still a lot better than we've ever had.
Yeah.
Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And then I guess, so in this instance, I guess once you've got that model, you've worked that kind of, so for this particular client of yours, it's just the first position you're doing for them.
Yeah.
So once that works, if you can prove the model, then you've built the model, haven't you? You say, okay, so now we're looking for someone else who has these attributes.
Yeah.
Because you've run that as a model.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And like our client bases, they're either well established, but they have got a handful of really good clients. Love other ones, but a handful of really good clients. But those good clients came because they were former colleagues and they know they're good, family members, mates, or they just got lucky. And they're like, we're really good at what we do. We've got clients who love us. Don't know how to get any more. And you go, right, but we've never had a salesperson. I don't like managing salespeople. Blah, blah, blah. Cool. So your needs are quite different. Whereas another one of our clients might be like, typically this looks like there'll be 2 or 3 directors and they'll be highly technically proficient. And the way that they sell is technically led, because that's what they're probably an engineer that then's going to run a business.
Yeah.
And they'll say something like, we've been going 12 years, we've never found a good salesperson yet. And one of the reasons they've never found a good salesperson yet is because they want everyone to sell the way that they do.
Right.
Because that's how they sell.
Yes.
As the business owner and a very, very big technically proficient person.
Yeah.
But I'm like, well, bearing in mind a lot of good quality sales is about falling in love with a client's problem or prospective client's problem and asking lots of questions to understand the context. It doesn't need to be a technical sale most of the time.
Nope.
And you can bring a technical person with you at the point you need a technical person. So it's really interesting that I suppose the methodology changes depending on what they need, but broadly it is let's find out about you, what you want, what you need, what are your preconceived ideas in your head. Do they serve you? Do we need to change them? Are you prepared to change them? They might be fine. Great. Well, we don't need to mess about with any of that. Right. What we need to do then is we need to, if you put yourself in the shoes of a sales professional, right? If you're good, you're in work, or we've got lucky, which we do. So the way that we get lucky is either the organisation has brought a new sales leader in and really peed off all of the sales talent by changing the way that they sell now no longer works. That happens a lot, believe it or not.
Yeah,
usually a sales director's taught themselves into a job and promised something they can't deliver, and it's ruined it. Great for someone like me, though, because we get onto some really good salespeople and take them to our clients. Or the organisation has messed with their money. They've promised them commission they haven't paid. Again, don't do that. Otherwise, people like me will go and take your salespeople. Or the third thing is they've hit capacity. So the organisation has sold to a level and they can't get any more, whether that's stock coming in or they just physically can't. So the guys and girls can't make any more money.
Right.
And they're like, well, this is a problem because I sell for a living. I'm a professional and I can't make the money that I should be making to fund the lifestyle that I want. I'm going. So you do get lucky. But if you think about these people, they've got a skill set. They want to test you out as much as you're testing them out.
Absolutely.
You need to tell me the narrative of how I can come into your organisation as the sales professional and make that money. So don't just. So what's really important is in your job advert, tell me who I'm selling to. What job titles are they? Who are they? Show me examples of what your average sale is. What's a small one, medium one, large one? What is my sales target so I can see how many of those sales come in? How is my commission paid? You don't just tell me it's an on-target earning of 80 grand. Show me the story. What activity do you need me to do? Because I might be the sniper and you're asking me to be the machine gunner.
Yeah.
Or vice versa, you know. That's the stuff you've got to tell. And then after you've done all that, now you can tell me about how many years you're established as an organisation and if you've got a foosball table and whatever else you've got going on. But the reality is, tell me how I can do my job and succeed in your organisation. Particularly if I'm being headhunted. I'm already in an organisation and I've already worked my backside off to have a pipeline. So you want me to leave that. Start again. You know, and I think the biggest mistake a lot of SMEs make is they forget the other side of the coin, which is you want someone who's brilliant, you better put the effort in and communicate to them why it's going to work for them.
Yeah.
Or accept that it potentially isn't and you aren't going to get the caliber you want.
Yeah.
You need to be a bit more realistic.
Yeah. So talk to me. I'm just interested. So it struck me a moment ago that so we do a lot of work in construction, as you know, and the big story there is there's no talent because basically there's a massive skills gap. So you know we're really trying to address things certainly at apprenticeship level, and we know, for example, that the business of construction is where certain businesses take operatives from another business. So that's the only way they can do it because there's no skills anywhere else.
Yeah.
So in the world of sales and that sits around there, we've got enough people.
It's a tricky one because it's a low barrier to entry. Like traditionally, if you want to start in sales and I've met one person, I've name dropped on this podcast already, who actually wanted to be a salesperson as a child. His good job was in sales training. Literally the only person I've met.
When I grow up.
10 years, yeah. And I was the same. I just fell into it. And I'm pretty sure you're the same, right? It's just, you just do. You like people and off you go. So are there enough talented, trained, motivated sales professionals that get consultative selling and understand that sales is about solving somebody's problem? And when you realise you can't solve it or you're not the best to solve it, you don't waste your time in trying to make a sale. You let them know. No, there aren't. Are there enough people with the personality type to be able to be brilliant at it? Yeah. But there is a massive disconnect in terms of making that efficient. And then do people understand how to manage salespeople in the SME world enough? No, they don't. But the reality is, I see So I interview 30 to 40 salespeople most months. December, not quite so much, but for most months, December and August out, 30 to 40 salespeople I'll interview in a month, each month. There'll be 3 to 4 rock stars in there.
Yeah.
Where I'd be like, oh my God, I wish I could hire you.
Yeah.
So I mean, you are awesome. And then there'll be another 10 maybe that are really good. So I don't see a shortage in talent if you know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And that is, what game are you in? What do you want? What don't you want? What's going to work? But again, I think it just goes back to what activity is going to get you the results.
Yeah.
Do you know that? And most people, if they're honest, haven't got a clue.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but just admit you don't know. And then we can solve the problem.
I asked the question because, of course, really, like the rest of any business, it really is about what does, outside of AI and anything where people disappear, surely we need to, sales is fundamental. So bringing that back into a conversation, which is, it's, by the way, just that, it's really cool to, to have a sales team that help you build your business. And I just wonder whether that narrative needs to be spoken about more from businesses like us even, so that it really encourages people to think more about, because everyone wants growth, right, of some description.
Yeah.
I just want more what? And these are the conversations we have with businesses. So, undoubtedly sales is the thing that's going to pick the lock.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm saying it because I think there's a conversation that could be had, which is basically making them cool again.
You can't, it's very difficult to grow a business without sales. I don't know how anyone could do it. Maybe if you're in if you're outside of e-commerce or whatever, if you enjoy it and you're naturally suited to going in, if you're inquisitive, it's brilliant. I mean, I'm sure, I know you're the same, right? I love finding these monumental businesses on like little tiny industrial estates you've never even heard of. And you're like, sorry, what? You turn over how much?
Yeah.
And you do what?
Yeah.
What, with the Ministry of Defence? And you've been like 45 minutes from my house for how long? 30 years. Never heard of you. It's like, it's insane. So that's great. I just think there's also no downside I don't see if you take the right actions, right? So if you focus on activity and not on the sale, the sales professional is either taking the activity or they're not. The reality is, if they're not taking that activity in week 2, it's unlikely they're going to take it in month 2. If they're a seasoned professional. Different if they're coming into the beginning of their career, which is fine. But if you actually do that and you monitor that and you've got a sales professional, they're updating your database, your CRM. You are getting great information, particularly if you're in a market where their window to buy is either seasonal or it's contractually led.
Yeah.
Whether that be a tender or, what have you. You're getting a heck of a database.
Yeah. And intelligence.
Yeah, so that's worth a lot of money.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I want to ask you the question. So I know partner model because we helped you build it within your offer. So talk to me about the build, scale, and exit. Sort of really interested to understand this kind of life cycle that most businesses are in. Well, every business is somewhere in that life cycle, and probably quite a few want to go through all 3.
Yeah. So loosely, you can win me over because I'm human, to be perfectly honest, but broadly, we have a set of criteria you need to meet, and you need to meet 90% of it because experience tells me probably not going to be a good fit. Now, there's obviously exceptions to every rule, but in the building phase, typically our client base are going to be 10 years or older. And the reason is because they've tried doing everything themselves, they understand it's difficult, and they're prepared to get help. So we don't usually work with startups because they don't get it a lot of the time. Now, there's obviously exceptions, and we have done with others, but from a build side of it, it's not usually our market. Scale, definitely our market, and also exit. So we get brought in. I've got a couple of relationships with some M&A, mergers and acquisitions people, and they will bring us in on 2 ends, really. One is right, they want to sell their business. They've had a chat with an expert in and around this, and they've gone, I'm really sorry, Lee, your business isn't worth anything because you do 90% of it.
Yeah, right.
So, like, you want to bog off into the sunset on a Caribbean beach.
Yeah.
I've bought a business that doesn't do anything.
Yeah, you're the currency.
Yeah. So that's where they'll then sort of bring us in, and through some of the stuff we've discussed, you can actually unpick quite a bit. And quite often it'll be like, right, you need to go and get yourself an operational leader or something like that. That's not us.
Yeah.
I can recommend somebody, or you can go and find someone yourself, not a problem.
Yeah.
But actually, in terms of the sales piece and the managing director, general manager side of it, we can do that. What does that look like? Does it look like this? Look like that? So that side of it. Or the other side of the M&A world, which is which people don't think of as an exit, is when you're exiting, someone's buying.
Yes.
So somebody buys a business and they go, this is brilliant, I don't want to run it. Can you find me somebody who can run it for me, please?
Right. Yeah.
So we get involved in that side of it. And then the skill tends to be more, like we've said, you're 10 years old or more, you're 3 directors or fewer, and you are hungry to get somewhere. You're probably just frustrated that you're really good at what you do, but you don't feel like you've got the value out of it.
Yeah.
And now it's like, let's just stop messing about. Do you know what I mean? We're bloody good at what we do.
Yeah.
Let's get somebody in to drive this forward. We've got the capacity. We've got the operational team. We've got the finance team in place. Let's start delivering more of this work. Can you get me some people in to do it?
We're sort of in that space. Certainly, that feels like
Yeah.
for us. But scale is so many things, right? So, because again, we ask a lot of these questions when we're talking to businesses about really where do they want to be. Well, I just want more sales, or I want more revenue. And sometimes it's just never really that specified. But it might even be we're looking to get more customers in different territories, for example.
Yeah.
Locationally could be a play. So talk to us about the different scale models that you're...
Yeah, like you said, pretty much exactly what you said. It depends on what the person's trying to achieve, right? So, and also then, so I had a conversation on... I've just realised I do a lot of this by just thinking on conversations I've had recently. But that's not how I frame it all. Yeah, so I had a conversation on Friday. And so they do a certain specific thing for a market. They've got 5 brilliant clients that are their ideal client. And we think their total addressable market in their city that they're working in London, is 50.
Yeah.
So we're like, right, we definitely think we could get another 10 out of that.
Yeah.
Right. So we get a sales professional in and they do that. That's great. But is there the growth? So you're talking about scaling, that's great. But if I'm a sales professional and you're paying me to win the business, but not to account manage it.
Yeah. So once I've won it.
And that's the addressable market.
Yeah.
Am I looking for another job in 18 months?
Gotcha.
Because equally, I've got duty of care to make sure somebody doesn't leave their job to come in and do something and it not work out. Yeah. In which, if that's what it is, get a contractor. There's plenty of very seasoned sales professionals that will work for you on a contract basis. They'll do that for you. But then we have the conversation, no, what we've realised is what we do for this market, we can do in about 12 other markets and they're bigger than this one. Right. So what we're saying, there's growth in this role then. So this person can come in and deliver this, do the 10. Right, now we're moving to that market in the same city. Very similar sale, but different in this. Okay. Right. What else do you think? Well, we think if we do this, we could also crack the US with it. It's a big goal. Right. Okay. What does that look like? So, like you said, but it's all ranges, right? It might be, look, I need to hit double our EBITDA number and then I can sell. And that's what it is.
Yeah.
So we're focusing on, we're not going to spend a lot of money here and here. The number's got to look like this, but we want to get some salespeople in, but they'll get a cut on the sale.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Totally different.
Yeah.
But we get it and we can communicate in the right way. Because again, it goes back to, you got a mirror, haven't you? Right. So this is what the employer wants. Is this what's going to motivate the person who's going to come in and perform?
Yeah.
It's all got to match.
I've always found this fascinating in your space, is that you have got 2 defined clients in play. I imagine there's even a 3 and a 4 somewhere in that mix.
Well, there's people in our business, isn't there? We're all equally as fallible as everyone else. So there's 3 lots of humans trying to get it to work together, and it's fun and games sometimes. But yeah.
So the idea that you've got your candidates and you've got your clients, that I've always found that interesting, because I mean, there's just the amount of variables that can make that difficult. So do you sort of pick one over the other? Where do you start? Is there a starting point?
So like what, in terms of once the job's going, and
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit like chicken and egg, isn't it? What do you have?
So for me, like the bit that I use as like you're right, because there are so many variables. The bit that I use as grounding is our job adverts. So they're, to me, I often refer to them as the center of the bullseye. Right? Nothing happens until the client has gone through our briefing process. Sometimes it's just a conversation with me. Right?
Yeah.
Just have a chat, and
Yeah.
then I'll go, right. Oh no, I get it. Let me write the job ad and come back to you, and then we'll go through it. But let's nail it. So we're talking, like we said, we're going to talk about the activity level, who you're selling to, what an average sale's going to be. Let's get the detail in. Let's talk about it, what you're going to reward them, where they're expected to work, the full shebang, warts and all. Let's get it in. Salary, obviously, there's lots of things on the internet. Why wouldn't you tell someone how much they're going to earn? Just do it. So once we've done that, but people talk a lot of rubbish about recruitment, right? Anyone on this planet, unless somebody corrects me, as far as I know, sources people who want to work for them, candidates, in one of three buckets. I'm a simple guy, I like buckets, right? In no particular order. Either you already know them, so they're in your network, right? And most SMEs will have gone through that, the first port of call. We've all tried that technique.
Yeah, definitely.
They're actively looking. So you put up a job advert and they apply.
Yeah.
Or you headhunt them.
Yeah.
And typically, so in our world, they're in our network. Well, we've got a network bigger than most because that's what we do for a living.
Yeah.
We always, no matter, even if we have a load of good candidates, we always pay for promote adverts of our job adverts because why wouldn't you? You get some motivated people. Again, those salespeople that have been peed off that are good. You just get lucky sometimes and why wouldn't you? And then the third place is we headhunt, and where we normally headhunt is from LinkedIn, using the paid subscriptions, the talent finder, and going and put the keywords in. It's not particularly sexy, but it's very effective and going through a process. But no matter where they come from, we start filtering them. So the first thing that they appear on, so we either see their LinkedIn page, have their CV because they're in our network, or they've applied on a job site, say Indeed. That's great. If that looks relevant, we'll invite them to come through to our website, which is a job advert specifically for that role.
Right.
And it'll have questions that they need to answer that are specifically around that, which we think are relevant.
Yeah.
I mean, you've seen this, haven't you?
Yeah, we've literally gone through this process.
So once they've done that, we'll look at those answers. We get a massive drop off from people who can be bothered to fill it in, which is great because it means you probably weren't going to turn up for an interview anyway.
Yeah,
thanks very much.
Right.
So the actual practicalities for us is we'll invite them to fill that in 3 times. If they don't fill it in, they don't fill it in. See you later. We then look at their answers. If they're not right, we'll reject them. If they are right, we'll then get their CV, those application answers, and their LinkedIn page up and try and spot where they're lying. There is a tolerance for maybe they're just accidentally misleading. We could try and clarify with them. There's some people that are like, no, that is just flagrantly not true. The nice thing about LinkedIn when you twin it with a CV is LinkedIn's publicly viewable. So on my CV, I can write, I am the head honcho of Apple.
Yes.
I also work at Amazon.
Yeah.
I can write whatever I want.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's on my desktop and then sent to you.
Yeah.
On LinkedIn, everyone can see that.
Yes.
So it's very interesting when you compare the two.
Yeah.
Job titles change, dates change.
Yeah.
Any numbers that were mentioned, something I mentioned. So yeah, so it's really important to do that. And then the last stage, as I said, is I interview them, or one on the team, it's usually me, and then record it. So then we're able to then put forward, right, hi Lee, I think you should interview this person. I'm recommending, I think they'll be performing the role. Here's their CV. Here's the application answers they gave. And here's a video interview of me interviewing them for this role, where, again, we touched on this. I'm talking them into it, selling on the selling points, but I'm also talking them out of it, should I say. And, it changes depending on the person. Sometimes I will prod more.
Yeah.
And sometimes I won't. Sometimes I'll deliberately act like I don't know something to let them tell me a bit more.
Yeah.
Depends on the role and the need, really.
You tell you've done sales. So you're good at it. So I want to ask you a question now, which I think is really, it's the kind of what next, I guess. So I know, for example, our business in the world of marketing and communications, brand marketing and communications, it's been tough. It's been a tough 4 or 5 years. But cyclically, what you do see is people And we're seeing it now where people are kind of waking up, businesses are kind of waking up and thinking, gosh, we need to market ourselves in order to grow.
Yeah.
So that's great for us. And it starts to make us think, what does tomorrow look like for us? Now, we can influence a great deal of that, you know, and I think that what we're trying to do when we're doing podcasts like this is entirely that. We're trying to align ourselves with people, with experts that sit in what we believe is the brand and communications eco cycle, if you like, eco center, in the sense that ecosystem, that's the word I'm looking for, is that what we're trying to do is understand that in order for business, organizations, businesses, commercial entities look to grow and strive and deliver all of the things that they do, is that they have good people.
Yep.
They have a vision that needs to be delivered against. They've got integrity. That means that they're doing it for the right reasons. And obviously they've got commercial acumen, which is basically, at the end of the day, none of this really works if I'm not making any money.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that there's an ability for everyone to do that, which again comes back to organizations know who they are, know what their purpose is, know what their vision is, understand who their audience is, which is critical, and thereby work out who's the best people to be inside that business. I'm always interested in which comes first there. Like, is it, we've had conversations in our business when we do our audits where we're talking to businesses about what does tomorrow look like. And then we meet some of the people and we think, oh, this is awkward because I don't know that tomorrow arrives with the kind of people you've got at the moment.
Yeah.
We've often said to people, remove all of the staff for a second. Let's build the structure of the business and the brand and its proposition. And then let's just look at our pool of talent and work out where's the best fit there, which is a really unusual discussion to be having with businesses.
Yeah.
But again, you can't unsay it or unhear it. So what does it look like in the world of sales? Where's next? What happens? And what happens to Your Wavelength?
I think for sales, my thoughts, for what they're worth, I'm no soothsayer, but for what they're worth, I think the world gets noisier. It's easier to use AI to phone you, personalize message you, and that almost forces you or nudges you, encourages you to go smaller again and value relationships, because it becomes really, really difficult to distinguish who the good actors and bad actors are and who actually knows things. And so you kind of just, that's what I imagine is going to happen. I think good quality conversation and presence and being able to sit with people and talk with people is going to be a big, big win in terms of that. In terms of what that looks like for Your Wavelength, it's just more of doing the same, which is keep building a monumental success story for our clients. The clients are the heroes. Where did they get to go? Has somebody else, so that's another person who's worked with you, who's gone on and achieved what they wanted to do. It's another testimonial, another going out for lunch with them, putting client dinners on. And the dilemma I have, and I have this with myself about 5 times a week, is who should be my next hire? Should I hire someone from recruitment or should I not? Is it easier to teach people what we do? And I'd rather get someone who's really good at sales. And when I say good at sales, what I mean is gets it, the good, the bad, and the ugly, can spot them, but also understands their role is to problem solve. That's it. You know, like when you said sales is a dirty word, and it has been, but actually most people, when you have a good performing salesperson that can steer you through a process, love it. If you're buying some complicated stuff for B2B, there's nothing better than someone who can actually go, look, right, don't worry about it. Tell me how you need to use it. Yeah. Well, you do with me, like when it's like, and our team, when it's like, look, we're going to do your brand, and I'm like, I don't know what any of these ethereal words mean. They're just like made up stuff. And you're like, well, is it this or is it that? Big bit of paper on your boardroom and going through all that. What do you mean by this? What do you mean by that? What do you think of this? And at the end of it, you're like, oh, well, I actually quite enjoyed it. I was dreading it. Yeah. Because cathartic. Yeah. And actually it's like, oh, you get to be creative, but on rails, if you know what I mean. Yeah. It's nice.
Well, I might use that. Creative on Rails. I like it.
Again, that'll be someone else's idea I've stolen. Sorry, whoever it was off the internet that I nicked that from.
Yeah. Asterisks. So, okay. I'm going to conclude this part of the interview and just say that it's been an absolute. I would love to have you on again if that's okay. To talk more, because I think there's lots of different subjects. That's before we get into certain industries, because I think that's a whole different thing. Specialist industries that utilise your services and our services. But I just want to thank you for being part of the MECast series. Like I say, it's really, really important. We surround ourselves by experts. You're one of them. And it's actually always a joy to work with you. So thanks again, Jimmy, for coming down, and tune in, everyone.
Thank you.